The Israel-Palestine conflict is often misunderstood. Some people think it's a centuries-old religious battle, but it's not. It mainly revolves around two groups of people who want the same land. This conflict began around 100 years ago, in the early 1900s. Back then, this land was ruled by the Ottoman Empire, and it was home to people of different religions, like Muslims, Christians, and a small number of Jews. They mostly lived together peacefully, so we're going to explore this conflict, but we'll keep it easy to understand without going into too many details and complexities. Let's start our journey. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a chapter in this fascinating story. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you're excited to uncover the truth about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Your support keeps the journey going. Look at this map of Palestine from 1946, and now check out the one from 2023. The big dramatic change happened because many Palestinians lost their lives, and millions had to leave their homes over 7 decades. Here are the historical events that caused Palestinian lands to become smaller and led to the creation and expansion of Israel. In the early 1900s, Palestine was a part of the Ottoman Empire. People of different religions, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, lived together peacefully. Then, a movement called Zionism started in 1896. Led by Theodor Herzl, they wanted to make a special Jewish country in the Middle East, preferably in Palestine. This idea became popular, and tens of thousands of European Jews moved to Palestine in the first half of the 20th century. World War I, the Ottoman Empire, ended, and Palestine came under British control. They called this area the British Mandate for Palestine. In 1917, Britain said it supported a Jewish homeland in Palestine, known as the Balfour Declaration. At first, the British allowed Jewish people to come and live there. But as more arrived, tensions grew between Jewish and Arab communities. They both did violent things. In the 1930s, the British started to limit how many Jewish people could come. In response, Jewish groups formed to fight against local Arabs and British rule. Then the Holocaust happened, which made many more Jewish people leave Europe for British-controlled Palestine. This event also got a lot of the world to support the idea of a Jewish state. Violence started to erupt between the two groups. In February 1947, the UK said it wanted to step down from its role and asked the UN for help with the Palestine issue. In November of that year, the UN agreed on a plan to divide Palestine into 2 parts, one for the Jewish people and the other for the Arab-Palestinian. The city of Jerusalem, which is important to Muslims, Christians, and Jews, became a zone controlled by the UN. This plan aimed to give the Jewish people a country, let the Palestinians have their own independence, and stop the fighting that the British couldn't manage. The Jewish side agreed with the UN's plan and declared themselves the State of Israel. In this section, we'll uncover why Jerusalem matters. This city holds sacred places, historical figures, and holy sites shared by the world's 3 major monotheistic religions. However, it's also been at the heart of a long-lasting struggle for power that spans centuries. What makes this city so unique and complex? Let's take a closer look. Jerusalem is super ancient, really old, like 4,400 years old, or even more. It's been destroyed and rebuilt, changing hands many times, and it's currently the subject of ongoing legal disputes. The city we see today is quite different from the city of old. The Jerusalem mentioned in the Bible is what we call the Old City today, which is part of East Jerusalem, currently under occupation. These are sacred lands, home to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Western Wall, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Western Wall and the Al-Aqsa Mosque share an area called the Temple Mount. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre holds 2 of Christianity's most important sites. Calvary is where Jesus is believed to have been crucified, and the empty tomb is where he's said to have been buried and resurrected. For Judaism, the Temple Mount is the most sacred place, where God's divine presence is believed to reside. The Western Wall is very close to the original Temple Mount, so it's a special place for prayer and visits by many faithful people. Then there's the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is considered the 3rd holiest site in Islam. It's built on top of the Temple Mount, also known as the Haram al-Sharif in Arabic. This is where the Prophet Muhammad journeyed from Mecca before going up to the heavens, which is a significant event in Islamic belief called the night journey. These places have attracted pilgrims and scholars for many, many years and hold a cherished spot in the hearts of billions worldwide. Both Israel and Palestine say Jerusalem is their capital. After Israel took over most of Jerusalem during the Six-Day War in 1967, they controlled the majority of the city, including East Jerusalem, which is considered as part of Palestine under occupation, and the Old City. Before the war, the Old City had 5 different areas: the Muslim Quarter, the Christian Quarter, the Armenian Quarter, the Moroccan Quarter, and the Jewish Quarter. Shortly after the Six-Day War, Israeli forces took over East Jerusalem and destroyed the ancient Moroccan Quarter to make a way to the Western Wall. Even though, according to international law, this land doesn't belong to Israel, but still they've been controlling the city for the last 50 years. Many people in the Arab world believed the UN plan was another way for Europeans to take their land. Several Arab countries, which had just become independent, went to war with Israel to create a single Arab Palestine that included all of British Palestine. Nearby Arab nations protested the land being taken over right after Israel declared itself a state. After the First Arab-Israeli War, Israel emerged victorious. They went beyond the borders set by the EU and claimed the western part of Jerusalem and a large portion of the land meant for Palestine. On May 15, 1948, Zionist groups forcefully removed over 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, seizing their land and making them refugees. This tragic event is known as Al-Nakba, which means catastrophes in Arabic. After the war, Israel had control over all the land, except for Gaza, which was under Egypt, and the West Bank, named for being on the west side of the Jordan River, controlled by Jordan. The State of Israel obtained 78 of historical Palestine, which included West Jerusalem. This marked the start of the long-lasting Arab-Israeli conflict. Fast forward to 1967. Many Jews from Arab-majority countries came to Israel during this time, either because they left voluntarily or were forced out. Tensions continued between Israel and its Arab neighbors. In 1967, a war called the Six-Day War started, and when it ended, Israel had taken control of the Golan Heights from Syria, the West Bank from Jordan, and both Gaza and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. The map looked like this. Israel was now in charge of Palestinian lands, including all of Jerusalem and its sacred sites. Now, Israel has complete control over Palestine. Even though there was no official peace agreement, things started calming down. However, Israelis began moving into Gaza and the West Bank, which makes the situation much harder for Palestinians. In the long run, by breaking up Palestinian territory, it becomes much tougher for them to have their own independent state. This led to a Palestinian fight, which led to the formation of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Their main aim is to free Palestine from Israel, by any means necessary. The fighting continued for years, and eventually, the PLO agreed to split the land between Palestine and Israel. However, the conflict didn't stop there. More people moved into the areas of Palestine that Israel controlled. The rest of the world sees this as against the law. Palestinians became very frustrated, leading to an intifada, or unsurprising in Arabic, by the late 1980s. It started with mostly protests and boycotts, but soon turned violent. Israel responded with strong force. In the first Intifada, a few hundred Israelis and over 1,000 Palestinians lost their lives. This gave rise to Hamas, a political group determined to resist Israel's control over the West Bank and Gaza in Palestine. In the early 1990s, it became evident that Israelis and Palestinians needed to find a way to make peace. Leaders from both sides came together and signed the Oslo Accords. These accords, signed in 1993 and 1995, were aimed at reducing tensions. They resulted in the division of the occupied West Bank into 3 sections: Area, fully controlled by Palestinians; Area B, controlled jointly by Palestinians and Israelis; Area C, completely under Israeli control. The solution also brings a problem. Area C has most of the West Bank's farming land, water and minerals, but Palestinians have limited access to them. More talks for peace don't work out. Palestinians lose hope, and this leads to the second Intifada in 2000. Palestinians start thinking that peace might not happen, and they rise up again. At this time, it's much more violent than the first one. When it finally calmed down a few years later, around 1,000 Israelis and 3,200 Palestinians lost their lives. Israel started making walls and setting up checkpoints to control and limit Palestinian movements. In 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza, but they kept building settlements in the West Bank, which is against the law. Hamas takes control in Gaza and breaks away from the Palestinian Authority because they think it's too secular. Now the West Bank and Gaza have different leaders. Following the outbreak of violence in Gaza, Israel enforced a very strict blockade. This led to a sharp increase in unemployment, reaching 40%, and movement in and out of Gaza, whether by land, air, or sea, was severely limited starting in 2017. Israel launched military offensives on Gaza in 2008, 2012, 2014, and 2021. In 2022, the Israeli-occupied West Bank saw its deadliest year for Palestinians since 2005. In 2023, Israel carried out aggressive actions in Gaza and conducted deadly raids in Jenin. On October 7, 2023, Hamas initiated Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, the largest attack on Israel to date. In response, Israel declared war on Palestinians with a major focus on heavily bombarding the besieged Gaza. Many Palestinians have suffered greatly. Hundreds of thousands have lost their lives, been forcefully removed from their homes, and forced to live under occupation for a very long time. The big question remains: will Israel ever work towards resolving the conflict and allow the possibility of peace in the region? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. Don't forget to like this video and stay tuned because we have a lot more content on the way.